Hello and welcome to the Coastal Corridors Public Workshop for the Ellendale area. We're glad you could join us tonight. We will not start our actual public workshop till 6:30. We do appreciate that you got on early just to make sure everything worked out with logging in and getting on to the virtual meeting. So we are going to make this announcement a few different times between now and 6:30 when the meeting will start. We are showing some slides that you can see as they scroll. We encourage you to read this information. It'll just make the information about the workshop in terms of our process, in terms of how we're going to do question and answer and so forth, as well as contact information. So we encourage you to read that, but you also can step away. We won't start anything until 6:30. So I'll come back on and repeat this announcement a couple times. But again, we're thankful that you have joined us. At this point, I'm going to go on mute.
Just to let everyone know, the person that had called in dropped off. So it's just the team on right now.
Is it something I said?
I'm guessing that we aren't starting anything till 6:30.
Hello, my name is Andrew Bing. It is currently 6:07. I am the facilitator for tonight's Coastal Corridors Public Workshop focused on the Ellendale area. Our workshop won't start until 6:30, but we're glad you were able to get on early and log in and make sure there were no issues. We encourage you to stick around. You can review the information that's scrolling on the screen. It'll just help you better understand our process for tonight, how we're going to do question and answer. It has some contact information on there. So you can just stick around. We'll start at 6:30, and I'm going to go back on mute and off video for a few minutes, and then I'll come back on and repeat this short message once we have a few more people who have logged on. So thanks again, and I'll be back on in a few minutes. Okay, again, welcome everyone. My name is Andrew Bing. I am the facilitator for tonight's public workshop for the Coastal Corridor Study. And this is the one focused on the Ellendale area. We're glad everyone has been able to join us, and we will not start until 6:30. We did set up this period of time just to make sure people could get on and make sure there were no issues in logging into the virtual meeting. You will see we have some slides that are scrolling through. Right now we're on the contact slide where we have the website, coastalcorridors.deldot.gov, and our project manager, Jennifer Sinelli Miller. But take a few moments and familiarize yourself with these slides. They will just help you better understand our process for the evening and how to take advantage of the question and answer that we're going to do. I will come back on in a few minutes, maybe closer to 6:20, just to repeat this message for those people who have joined. But again, just hang tight. We're going to start up at 6:30. So thanks again, everyone. And I'm going to go back on mute and off video. Hi again, everyone. My name is Andrew Bing. I will be facilitating tonight's Coastal Quarters public meeting for the Ellendale area. We're glad you joined us. We will not formally start until 6:30. We did encourage people to get on early just to make sure they could log in and didn't have any issues. We are showing some slides right now that will help you understand the format of the public workshop. We'll start with a presentation. There will be opportunities during the presentation for us to get your feedback, which we're looking forward to. There will also be a formal question and answer session at the end of the presentation. And as you can see, we have contact information on the screen. So we will start up in approximately 10 minutes. Until then, just hold tight. I'm going to go off video and go on mute, but I'll come back on in 5 minutes just to provide a similar update. Thank you. Hi again, everyone. My name is Andrew Bing, and I will be the facilitator for tonight's public workshop for the Coastal Corridor Study. And this is focused on the Ellendale area. We've had a few more people log in. We will not actually start until 6:30, so we still have a few more minutes. We do have some slides that are scrolling on the screen, so you can familiarize yourself with the process we will undertake tonight in terms of our presentation, some opportunities during our presentation to provide input, and then Q&A at the end of the evening. So we are looking forward to getting going in a few minutes, and we'll be right back to you at 6:30, and we will start up. So thanks again for joining, and I'm going to go on mute and for another couple of minutes until we start up. Thanks again. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Bing. I'll be the facilitator for tonight's public workshop for the Coastal Corridor Study. And this public workshop tonight is focused on the Ellendale area. We will be having other workshops the rest of the week that focus on the other 4 towns and the surrounding areas. But again, tonight is focused on Ellendale. So we welcome you to this workshop. I'm going to go over a little bit of information before I introduce Jeff Rigner, who just popped on the screen, who's going to lead us through our presentation. So if we can go to the next slide. So we'll start tonight by presenting some initial information about the study. So we are just getting going on this study. And we're going to just present some initial information just to kind of get us started with what we've heard so far and kind of what we know about the area. So in terms of participation, obviously we wish we could be doing this workshop in person, but because of the pandemic, we're doing it virtually. Hopefully at some point soon, we'll be able to get back to an in-person workshop and also provide, hopefully, the ability for people to participate remotely. But for tonight, you'll have a couple different opportunities to participate, provide input, and ask questions. During the presentation, there will be 3 points where we will stop and give you the chance to submit some feedback to us. And that will be by using the Q&A feature, which you see circled on your screen. So if you hover over your screen, you should be able to see that Q&A. And at the appropriate time, we're going to ask you to type some information in there and provide us with some feedback. Next slide, please. So after we're done with the presentation, we will have an open question and answer session. So this will be a live Q&A. If you are on by Zoom, and I think most people are on using the Zoom technology, you'll use the raise the hand feature. You see that circle there? You'll just raise that hand and I'll see that and I'll come to you in whatever order people raise their hand and you can ask your question. I'll ask you to unmute and you'll unmute and then come on live and ask that question. If you are on by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. But again, right now, I don't believe we have anyone on. So again, we'll unmute you and then we'll get into a live Q&A. Next slide, please. At this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to, well, actually, I'll introduce the panelists. Okay, we're going to have Mark Cote, Josh Thomas, and Jen Sinelli Miller. They're all from the Delaware Department of Transportation. There's Mark on the screen right there. We also have Jamie Whitehouse with Sussex County. The county is very much a partner in the Coastal Corridor study, and we're glad to have Jamie here to answer any questions. And then I already introduced myself, and then I'm going to turn it over now to Jeff Rigner with WRA, who's going to lead us through the presentation. Jeff?
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate all of you joining us this evening. We'll start off talking about what the coastal corridors are. What does that mean? So in our terms, the coastal corridors are routes 16 and 404, and the local roads between those two routes, as you can see on the map that's here. We will be having workshop sessions in each of the 5 towns, well, in each of the 5 towns that are noted here: Greenwood, Ellendale, Milton, Ridgeville, and Georgetown. So the study area extends from the Maryland line on the west to Route 1 on the east. And these routes were chosen because they serve an important local function, as you all know, as residents of the area. They also carry the majority of traffic between the Delaware beaches and the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, so they serve a regional function as well. So what's happening now? Why are we studying these routes? Well, I'm sure many of you know the state of Maryland has widened Route 404 to within a few miles of the Delaware state line. And they're also looking at additional highway capacity crossing the Chesapeake Bay, either widening the Bay Bridge or providing a new span. Also, you see every day that development activity continues to increase traffic in the study area. And of course, the Delaware beaches are not going anywhere. They're going to continue to attract visitors from elsewhere. So DelDOT and Sussex County are undertaking this study specifically to make sure that future traffic growth works for the communities in the area rather than harming them, maintaining the high quality of life that all of you are used to in this part of Sussex County, ensuring continued economic competitiveness for local businesses, and focusing on transportation safety and mobility. And we're starting this process maybe a little different, and we think better than some past studies have, and that's by listening first. You and your neighbors know this study area better than anybody. And so by understanding your perspectives up front, DelDOT can work with you to develop solutions that work for the community to meet the goal we just talked about. So we started listening by conducting a listening tour. We met with about 50 stakeholders in the study area over the winter, virtually, of course, sharing the same information that you've just seen in the last few slides about the study. We met with elected and appointed officials, residents, representatives of schools, businesses, emergency service providers, and the like. These were one-on-one or small group conversations. We didn't attribute comments to individuals, so that way people could speak freely and really tell us what they wanted to tell us about the study. So what are the things that we heard? Well, the only truly common theme across everyone is that people love Sussex County. They don't want to lose their small town or rural way of life as traffic increases. But we also heard a lot of specific suggestions and recommendations. And we'll spend a good bit of time now summarizing those for your benefit. We've lumped these into a number of different categories: safety, traffic, economic issues and opportunities, emergency services, technology and global positioning systems, and other. And for each category, the comments that we received during the listening tour are listed first. In some of the categories, especially safety and traffic, we do have some supporting technical information to share with you as well. In terms of safety, again, these are things that we heard from the listening tour. And I should have mentioned earlier, the purpose of this workshop and the other workshops that we're holding this month are for you to add your voices, to let us know your thoughts, what you see on a regular basis from a transportation perspective, what you're concerned about in the future in terms of transportation. So this is just a starting point, and we look forward to you adding your thoughts as well. So from a safety perspective, we heard that traffic causes safety problems for operating farm equipment, especially on roads without shoulders. Safety concerns were expressed at several specific intersections and roads, and you can see those listed there on your screen. We also heard from folks that red light running is a safety issue. And now we have several slides showing you what our subsequent studies have found, and in many cases they bear out just what we heard. So we looked first at statewide crash rankings. All across the state, we look at the crash rates at individual intersections and rank in crash frequency, severity, and cost as you see there. So the last time that was done was using data from 2016 to 2018. 3 of the top 50 intersections in the state are in our coastal corridors study area. And specifically, we're focusing tonight on Ellendale. You can see there that the intersection of US 113 and SR 16 just west of the town ranked 33rd among the top 50 intersections in the state. All the rest of our crash data was over a 4-year period from 2017 through 2020. During that 4-year period, there were over 3,000 crashes within the study area, consistent with similar areas of similar size elsewhere in the state. You can see this map. Major hotspots, which are the redder colors on the map, include the intersection of US 113 and SR 404 and 18 in Georgetown, US 9 and Route 404, 9 and 113, also all of those are all in Georgetown, 113 and SR 16, just west of Ellendale, and US 9 and SR 5. And here you can see that hotspot at 113 and 16. This shows you the number of fatal crashes that occurred in the study area over the last 4 years. As you can see, there were 3 in each year, 2017, 2018, and 2020, and 5 in 2019. The bar charts that you see there show total number of crashes. So of course, every crash is important to us, but fatal crashes are especially so. And so we looked specifically at locations of those crashes over the last 4 years. You can see at the top of the map, there were none in the Ellendale area during that time frame. The areas where there was a concentration of fatal crashes were along Redden Road and along US 13. And that is particularly recently, Redden Road has been a concern. The 3 fatalities in 2020 are circled in brown, and 2 of those were along Redden Road. So we'll certainly be looking for patterns in that area. During that 4-year time frame, 14 crashes within the study area involved pedestrians or cyclists. You can see there's a pretty significant concentration in the Georgetown area. None of those crashes were in the Ellendale area. We also looked at crash types. Most crashes within the study area were one of 2 types, either front to rear crashes, so rear end crashes, or single vehicle crashes, meaning vehicles that ran off the road and hit a fixed object or that hit an animal. And you can see there that 16% of all crashes involved a vehicle hitting a fixed object, and 10% involved a vehicle hitting a deer. So wildlife crashes are a significant issue in this area. As I mentioned, there was a large number, 16% of the crashes involved hitting a fixed object. The biggest area for that was along the S-curve on Route 30, just southwest of Milton. There were 25 fixed object crashes along just 1.25 miles of Route 30. And you can see that driver inattention, distraction, fatigue, and sometimes careless or reckless driving or driving under the influence contributed to those crashes. There were fixed object crashes in the Ellendale area, less intense a concentration of them than along Route 30, as you can see there down to the lower right. 339 crashes, or about 10%, involved a vehicle hitting a deer. More than 70% of those occurred during dark, not lit conditions, not surprising given both visibility and the movements of deer. In this case, the Bridgeville area appears as a hotspot for deer crashes. And there is less so in the Ellendale area. So Andrew mentioned early on that we were going to ask some questions of you, and this is the first of those. So I encourage you to go to the Q&A button that should show up at the bottom of your screen, and we want to hear from you. What safety concerns do you have in the study area? That's anywhere, not just around Ellendale. You're welcome to add new ideas of things that you're concerned about. You're welcome to agree with the things that you've seen over the last several slides, disagree. Your input is what's important here. So we want to hear from you, just as we heard from folks on the listening tour.
And it's just to, as you're thinking about things maybe that you want to contribute in the Q&A, this workshop is very much a two-way opportunity. You know, we want to take the opportunity to share information with you, but this is very much a feedback opportunity where you can provide information to us that will help us as we move this study along. As Jeff said, we're very early in our study, so any kind of information like this would be real helpful to us. We look forward to you doing that. I did also want to make one more note, just give Jeff a breather here as he goes through the presentation. If you notice on the bottom of your screen, we are doing some closed captioning, and it's doing a pretty good job, but like all things, it doesn't get every word perfect. So we hope this is a benefit to anyone who's joining us who benefits from having closed captioning. But again, if we miss a word or two, we apologize. Again, you do not, we understand that putting people on the spot, you may not have anything to contribute, but as the presentation continues, as this workshop continues, if you have something that you think about related to safety that you want to share with us, just open up the Q&A box and just type that in, and we will have that for our records and to use as we move forward. So Jeff, why don't we turn it back to you, continue on, and again, take the opportunity to share anything you want in that Q&A box.
Thank you, Andrew. And we will have a project-specific email address at the end of today's presentation. If that's a way that you would prefer to share your ideas, if you just want to take some time to think about them and respond later, that would be completely fine.
And Jeff, I don't know if you're able to see that, but we did get a question come in through there that relates to what you shared. And if you're able to respond, do the fatality statistics only include years 2016 to 2018, or was that expanded to a different time period?
Everything but our first slide was for calendar years 2017 through 2020. The intersection data comparing the top 50 in the state was not compiled that recently. That's why it's a little different. Everything else was during that 4-year period.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Sure thing. So that's safety. Now we're going to talk about traffic, which, as you can imagine, has also been a topic of importance to our listening tour participants. Here are some of their responses, and we have a couple slides of these. First is to avoid congestion. Drivers are using secondary roads that aren't designed for it. We also heard that service workers, especially those that live in the eastern part of Sussex County, or that work, in the eastern part of Sussex County, live to the west because housing is more affordable. So they travel on east-west roads to their jobs. That means the congestion is no longer just on the weekends, it's all the time. And we do have some data to support that as well. Improving the east-west roads without fixing the existing bottleneck on Route 1 will only result in feeding more traffic into the existing backup. And that's true, and there are significant DelDOT and county initiatives to work on Route 1 right now. There were also some specific locations that were mentioned as having traffic concerns. One is the complex intersection of Cave Neck Road, Hudson Road, and Sweetbriar Road near Milton. Others were the intersections of Route 16 with Route 30, with Route 5, and with Route 1. A comment was made that there's a need for an east-west route that doesn't go through downtown Georgetown. And not all comments agree. You'll see actually later on that there's another comment that suggests something different than that. So we're listening to everyone. And there's also a need in general to address truck traffic in the towns within the study area. We've done some initial analysis in this regard as well. So this map shows average annual daily traffic, so typical daily volumes from the DelDOT traffic summary on roadways in the study area. Generally, the darker and thicker the line is, the greater the volume. So you can see very clearly with more than 20,000 cars a day, routes 13 and 113. But there is significant traffic on east-west routes as well. So you can see most of Route 404/18/9 is in the 10 to 20,000 vehicle per day traffic volume. And the blue lines, such as much of Route 16 and Route 5, are in the 5 to 10,000 vehicles per day category. We also looked at level of service to the extent that we could. This past year has been really remarkable in many ways, and that's even from a transportation perspective. As you know, traffic patterns changed significantly with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and haven't fully returned to normal yet. So we used information from previously available counts, which means not every intersection or every traffic signal in the study area has a dot on it. So those intersections that did have data available, we conducted level of service analysis to determine how they're performing. Level of service is calculated using a letter grade. A is the best and F is the worst. And generally speaking, level of service tends to degrade once it hits D or worse. So among all of the intersections that you can see on that map, which included the intersection of 113 and 16 near Ellendale, only the intersection at 113, 18, and 404 had level of service D. All of the others actually function better than that. And there you can see 113 at 16 near Ellendale. We also looked at a measure called travel time reliability. It's less commonly used, but it really relates to what you and I experience on a daily basis. If you think about when you need to leave your home to go to work or to an appointment, You make that decision based on how long you think it's going to take. If there isn't much traffic, you can probably leave pretty much at the last minute and still be able to get there on time. If there does tend to be traffic from time to time, you need to leave that much earlier to make sure that you'll get to your appointment or work on time. And the difference between those two, the time that you need to leave and the actual travel time, is a good measure of travel time reliability. So put in technical terms, it compares the worst measured travel time to the uncongested or free flow travel time. So again, the more red, the worse the situation is. We looked at 3 different time periods. This is a typical weekday AM peak. The last data we had pre-pandemic was 2019. And you can see the red areas are the areas of most concern. So specifically eastbound, US 9/404, between roughly Harbison area, east toward the beach, experiences congestion, the highest congestion in the AM peak. The yellow areas are also concerned, so that is the rest of that stretch of Route 9 and 404, as well as some portions of 404 and 13 near Bridgeville and eastbound 16 west of Greenwood. None of those specific travel time concerns were noted in the Ellendale area. Next, we looked at the PM peak hour, and you can see that that's significantly worse than AM peak. US 9 between Georgetown and the beach area gets worse in both directions. You can still see some of the congestion in the bridge or the travel time issues in the Bridgeville area. And specific to Ellendale, you can see westbound SR 16 between Route 1 and US 113. And then finally, you see some documentation of the comparison between the PM peak and the weekend peak. You heard earlier, some folks from the listening tour said, hey, congestion's not just about the weekends anymore. And this data shows that. So this is a 2019 weekend peak. And you can see Route 9 is actually a little better on the weekend than during a typical PM peak. But you do still see some of those concerns around Bridgeville. And added to this are some significant north-south congestion in Georgetown and less congestion, but still measurable, on southbound 113 between Ellendale and Georgetown. So much like we did for safety, we'd like to ask you a similar question about traffic. What traffic concerns do you have in the study area? What issues do you face today? What are you concerned about in the future with respect to traffic? Again, you're welcome to add new ideas or comment on some of the ideas that you've heard in the previous slides.
And I'll just jump in for a second, a couple quick things as you're thinking about that. So again, we started with safety. Any information you want to share. Now we're focusing on traffic. We are getting some comments. We're also getting some questions in the Q&A. We will be doing a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So you can certainly wait and ask that question live and we can respond. And we have representatives from DelDOT, from the county on board to respond to any questions. And I did want to just let people know that we will, this presentation is already posted on the project website. So for any of your friends or neighbors that weren't able to see tonight's presentation, you can direct them to the website and they can see this information.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Now I'd like to talk about some of the other categories of issues that we heard from the listening tour. One of them was regarding economic issues and opportunities. Again, these are things that we heard during the listening tour. Some folks, especially business representatives, said that some level of traffic, a manageable level, is good for local businesses. That it's important to preserve productive farmland in Sussex County. We don't want to bypass that draws all traffic away from downtown businesses. Again, you heard another comment earlier that says we do need a way to get traffic around town. So we understand those are two perfectly valid points, and we need to consider both. There's a high volume of trucks associated with the poultry industry, of course. Those trucks use main roads to get to and from the processing plants, but also small secondary roads to get to farms. We also heard there's so much new development, and I saw some comments in the Q&A that support this as well, and they just keep building more. Roads are not keeping up with development. I will share also what development activity is currently in the state and county systems right now. This is hard to see at a large level, but it shows, you see a number of areas of various colors that show developments in the study area, but I'll zoom into the Ellendale area. And specifically, there's one development that's noted called Captain's Way that's along the north side of 16, just east of town limits. We also heard about emergency services. Emergency service providers noted that they feel the need for a mass evacuation route so that people can quickly get away from the beach area in times of trouble. There was also concern noted about being able to get to emergency facilities, hospitals in Milford and Lewis, because there are limited such services in this part of northwestern Sussex County. And congested roads during the summer hinder emergency response vehicles from getting to emergencies because they're in the same traffic that everyone else is. We also heard about technology, which is not something we would have heard asking these questions a few years ago. There was a suggestion to better use technology to direct people to take certain routes depending on where they're going based on current conditions. Also a suggestion to modify GPS to direct trucks to truck routes. We've all seen in some cases trucks following GPS getting stuck on small streets and roads. There was also the comment that traffic on 404 seemed worse in the past, and the GPS seems to have dispersed some traffic to other roads. And finally, we heard a handful of other issues. One is that there's a high demand for recreational bicycling in all communities east of 113. There was a request to consider the need for green infrastructure or roadway projects that better manage stormwater in an environmentally friendly way. One comment was also that people should be made aware that Delaware is allocating more road improvement funding to Sussex County than ever before. There are many projects in the pipeline. As Andrew mentioned, this presentation is on the project website, so you can look at it at your leisure. But each of the different colors shown on this map shows different transportation efforts that are underway within the study area. You can see significant concentrations where the most traffic is occurring in the Bridgeville area, Georgetown area, some in the Milton area, some further east on Route 9. There is also one specific project in the Ellendale area, and that's advancing a recommendation of the US 113 North-South study, which is the design of a grade separation at US 113 and Route 16. Now, finally, the last listening tour element that I wanted to mention is that it's important that the public be involved in the conversations about how to plan for future traffic growth. We couldn't agree more, which is why we had the listening tour, which is why we're having this conversation and 4 others like it this week, representing various areas around the study area. With that in mind, we'll offer one more opportunity for you to let us know about what other transportation issues you experience in the coastal corridors area. These could be things related to safety and traffic that you haven't had a chance to comment on yet, or other transportation issues that we should be concerned about as we move forward.
Great, yes. So again, we continue to get comments coming in. I want to make sure everyone, as Jeff was talking about the listening tour is one part of the public outreach process that the Coastal Corridors study is undertaking. We have the listening tour, we have these public workshops, and really at any time someone can submit any feedback regarding a project, in this case a study. I also just want to make sure it's clear to everyone that this is a study and not a project. In essence, a project is like what took place in Maryland with 404, where they actually went out and built something on the ground. We are in the early stages and just studying something. There is no project. We're not taking any land right now. There's no lines on a map, if you will, of something that's going to happen. We want to listen to you first, and in a collaborative way, work with the public to figure out what are some of the needs in the area. And that may very well not include any widening of any road. So I just don't want anyone to be concerned that right now there's any reason to worry about taking of anyone's land, acquiring land, or anything like that. We are in the very early stages of a study to figure out what some things might be to help improve things for the future, looking out 5, 10, 15, even 20 years. So I just wanted to make those points. Jeff, we are getting some good feedback on the Q&A, so we appreciate that. But we can continue on, I think.
Yeah, thanks. So what happens next in this whole process? First, we compile your comments. So everything that you're noting in the Q&A, we are recording. So you're having the same opportunity to provide comments on this process as anyone we've talked to previously and as anyone else who's going to be part of our workshops this week. So we thank you for all the comments and questions that you've provided. As I mentioned, this is one of 5 virtual public workshops that are happening this week. There are 2 tomorrow, one Wednesday and one Thursday. And although we're focusing on each of the 5 tents in the study area, you could see from tonight's presentation that there's a lot of general information regarding the entire study area. So if you have friends or family members who are unable to attend tonight, I encourage you to have them sign up for our meetings tomorrow afternoon or Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday evening. After we compile all of your comments and put those together, we'll do traffic modeling to better understand both existing conditions, more than we have so far, as well as anticipated future conditions. So how do we think traffic is going to grow in the future? And how do we best accommodate that while still respecting farmland, towns, the rural way of life? And then we'll be coming back to you with information on transportation needs or problems that will need to be addressed. Before we start our question and answer session, I'll give you some information about where to find out more. You can find out more at the DelDOT project website, coastalcorridors.deldot.gov, or you're welcome to contact DelDOT's project manager, who is the host for tonight's meeting, Jennifer Sinelli Miller. You're welcome to use her email address and phone, or to use the project email address, which does go directly to her, coastalcorridors@delaware.gov. So if you have some additional thoughts you'd like to add beyond what's put in the Q&A so far tonight, by all means, please don't hesitate to email her at coastalcorridors@delaware.gov with your thoughts and ideas. And we'll make sure to post that information up on the last slide after we're done with our Q&A. So Andrew, let's go ahead and take questions at this point.
Yeah, I will do that, Jeff. Before I do that, I just, while you're still on there, one kind of question came through the Q&A that I thought you could just handle, which was, what is a grade separated interchange? What do you mean by that term?
Oh, sure. It's basically an interchange. So the best local examples would be going north, Milford, the new one at the intersection of routes 1 and 30, 1 and 14. So essentially either raising the main road or raising the side road to pass over the other and connecting them with ramps.
Great. So we are going to go to our live Q&A. If you are on by Zoom, you see the circle around the raise hand at the bottom. Just hover over your screen, click that. I will see that and I will know to come to you. I would then ask you to unmute and you can ask your question. And we have various people who are prepared to respond if we can respond. If you are on by phone and you would also like to ask a question, the way you indicate that is by pressing the star button and then 9. That'll raise the hand for you. And again, I'll get you unmuted and you can ask your question. So that's what we're going to do. At the same time, where it's appropriate, we may pose some of the questions that came through the Q&A as well to our panelists. So we'll do both if we can. But for right now, we're going to start with. Oh, I thought I saw someone's hands raised, but maybe not. So we'll just. Oh, there it is. Okay, I thought I saw that. So Annette Jimerson, we're going to come to you. I just clicked to allow you to talk. You now have to unmute yourself, and then once you do that, just say something, and we'll make sure you're there.
Okay.
Annette, go ahead. I can hear you. Go ahead.
My question is, so tonight we're not specifically going to get answers to our questions. You're just going to take them under advisement.
No, Annette, what we're going to do is what we asked for during the presentation was to get feedback from you on were there any additional safety issues that we didn't touch upon that you wanted to share with us, or traffic issues, or any other transportation issues. So that was more of a feedback session. For this part, the Q&A, we absolutely would love for you to ask us questions. And if we can, we're going to respond to them. Absolutely.
Okay. First of all, coastal corridors, is that just the title given to this project, or are you an out-of-state company?
Well, there are two different questions in there, I think. So in terms of the study name, the coastal corridors represent sort of the area between that Route 404 and Route 16, kind of going east and west. So this is primarily an east-west study. So it was determined that the name coastal corridors kind of is a broad name, represents the area. I see Jennifer Snelly Miller coming on. She can certainly take that on as well if you want. There you go.
Hi, Annette. No, so Coastal Corridors was a name I kind of came up with. I'm actually leading the 5 Points Transportation Study out of Lewis as well. So this was just to kind of name the study as something that we're looking at with the widening of 404 in Maryland and people coming from the west. DelDOT's been very concerned with the population growth as well, and our visitors increasing every year for our wonderful beaches. So we launched the Coastal Corridor study. I saw a couple comments in there I wanted to touch on too, Andrew and Jeff, if you guys are okay. We want to talk to everybody to get ahead of all this, right? Like we don't want to end
the Delaware. You are Delaware based. You're not an out-of-state company taking this assignment on.
No, ma'am. I am literally born and raised in Dover, Delaware. I now work for DelDOT. So I am I love my job, and I'm very happy to be able to serve the citizens of Delaware in this capacity. So what my team is doing is we are studying all the traffic impacts and everything that's going on right now. And this is the feedback stage. We're asking everyone that lives, works, touches this area to let us know what's going on. Because I can drive through it every day and not see what people who actually live there see, right? Like I don't live in Dover, I do live in Milford. So I am in Sussex County, but I don't see everything that goes on in every one of these towns on a regular basis. So that's why we want you all to let us know what's happening.
My other question was, and then I'll, give up the floor to someone else. I know the gentleman emphasized that land is not going to be taken. We shouldn't be concerned about that. It's just the early stages of the project. But is that on the table, that there is a chance, a possibility that land will be taken?
No, right now, my focus is on figuring out what is actually happening. So we aren't even thinking about that possibility. You can never say never for any of the options that are out there. But again, like they said, we are just trying to figure out what's happening, where traffic is flowing, what kind of steps we can take to kind of mitigate some of the impacts that are happening. So we're really just trying to collect the data, find out what's going on from you all on the ground.
And Mark Cote, did you want to jump in? And just introduce yourself, Mark, again.
Just to address the question about the land. So we are very early in this process. There's, a whole host of potential, solutions and options we choose. Some of these things are, signage, which doesn't take, any land beyond our right of way. There could be, widening to put shoulders on the road to increase safety. That may or may not need to acquire land. And then there's, the largest projects that we have in the study area are the grade separated intersections, or GSIs, which are large interchange, which would ultimately involve the acquisition of land. But it's way too early to tell. And, for each project, we go through a public process to—
Thank you all.
Concerns.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to the next hand that I saw raised. Give me 1 second here. Okay, we're going to go to Yule Lee. So I just unmuted you. You need to unmute yourself and then come on and ask your question.
Hi, good evening. I have a question about the coastal corridors area, because I think last summer when I attended the the council transportation council meeting, I thought the coastal corridor study would include Route 24. Is there any reason Route 24 has been removed?
Mark?
So the Route 24 area is not in this study area. So this is really bounded by 16 and 404. The Route 24 corridor has its own series of projects that are going on, and we're also looking at soon, as part of the just 24 projects, to continue, or really to start up a longer range corridor solution for 24 also. We also have the Henlope and TID that covered a large portion of the 24 corridor too, as well as many other projects. We had a public workshop, I believe, 2 weeks ago on the 24 corridor. And so I'm sure you can look at that workshop that was on site and on our website and see what was presented for the 24 corridor.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I attended that presentation, and I think I was told that all those improvement projects were not to expand the capacity, but rather to take care of the current safety hazard, that type of issues. So if there's going to be any Route 24 study, do you have any timeline?
You're correct. So the workshop did address the short-term improvements focused on safety. The longer capacity improvements along 24 will have its own separate study in the next year or so.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you. We're going to go to our next question. This is from Virginia Short. So I'm going to take you off mute. You just have to unmute yourself and then you can come on and ask your question.
Okay, so you say that this is just a study, but we have plans in front of us that show that it is actually a project with roads already allocated and set in place to where you're proposing to run them.
So I need you to clarify what you mean by that, and I'll try to get the right person on to respond. So you're saying you see something in front of you that already has a project ready to go?
We have a printout that shows State Route 16, 113, and it shows the proposed routes that you're looking to impose upon through your study. And just want to figure out why you continue to call it a study and not an actual project, because it has limits on it.
I can respond to that initially, Andrew.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Jeff, I don't see you. Are you on video, or maybe you're just not online? Oh, there you are.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm here.
go ahead.
So I will go back to the project slide. Oh, there we are. So this is an overall study, of course, to look at routes 16, 404, and the local roads in between them. Project studies like this take a long time to go through to make sure that we get good public input and are able to advance these projects, and they depend on funding as well. So that does not mean that no work is happening in the area at all. And in fact, as you mentioned, one of the projects that's shown here that is in design is the grade separated intersection at 113 and 16. So there are projects that are happening. They're shown in purple. Most of them happen to be in the Georgetown area. So there's a similar grade separation that's being designed at 113, 18, and 404. So the short answer is, for looking at the overall corridor, we are just starting to understand what some of those issues are. But there are specific projects that are still advancing that had already been started. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, and then also you were talking about not taking anyone's land other than, through your right of way. With this project that's been pointed out, you're going to be taking a significant amount of land through, if you follow some of your rerouting that you have here.
Some of the projects that are shown on this map, much like Mark mentioned, are able to be done within existing right of way. Others do require significant land acquisition. That's correct. And the one that you're talking about at 113 and 16 is one of the latter.
And Jeff, just for the record, I just checked the website for the project. And Mr. Short, they have that they may be out to public workshop for that project this summer, but there's nothing scheduled to start on that project construction-wise until 2027. So what I'll do is, if you can put, email me, they'll put the email back up, email me your contact information, and I'll make sure the project manager for that grade separated intersection project gets a hold of you.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Yeah, I was going to respond, but then Jeff did a really good job. So everyone, just as a refresher, I'm Josh Thomas. I'm with DelDOT. I was just going to say, Jeff, you did a good job with that. The only thing I would add is that, when we embark on a study like this, we have to look at the projects that are currently programmed and funded for the next, 5 to 10 years, because any future consideration of traffic has to take into account, we have to imagine that that road will be built, that the improvement will be made. So when we're modeling the traffic, we can tell what's going to happen to it. So yeah, it's really important for us to separate the kind of currently programmed projects and this 20-year focus we're looking at here, where we're looking at, long-term traffic patterns, working with the county to figure out what development might look like, so we can get ahead of problems so they don't sneak up on us, and then we have a problem to dig ourselves out of.
And that's fine, but and also, like you said, in your studies, that this has been one of the lowest areas for crashes, fatalities, and things of that nature at this intersection.
So watching.
Right. So we one thing I think there, and I'm not singling out anybody specifically, but there could be a tendency to think that because we're studying something, we automatically know we're going to do something. And that's certainly not the case. That's why we want to do this. If we find out that all the data shows that, we don't have as many things to do here as we thought, then we can just do small things, as Mark mentioned earlier, signage improvements, traffic improvements and such, small improvements, and then maybe there aren't larger things that need to be done. So we certainly don't want to portray it as though there's going to be major changes. We don't know that yet.
Great. Thanks, Josh.
This map shows differently.
So I don't see anyone else. Oh, just as I said that, Crystal Beach raised, we have a raised hand there. I just unmuted you. So Crystal, you can come on and we can make sure you're there, and then you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, good evening. So if we look at the natural life cycle of corridors, so, as someone that's multi-generational Delawarean and we've seen what's happened through the years with Route 1 and how the life cycle of that road has grown to its current state, my question would be, when you're looking at your solutions and options, I'm going to assume somewhere in there is the payment, paying for these roads. So is that going to be done with tolls? Are we now talking about the life cycle of 16 becoming a toll road like it has for Route 1? Or where do we see the offset of all of this funding, especially with our current budget levels? Where do we see this money coming from for the improvements? And I understand that you're planning out for years ahead, but would like to hear what some of the thoughts are right now in the agency.
Sure, great, thank you for that question.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and I can't remember all the way back to the beginning of this, but I'm Mark Cote. I'm the director of planning for DelDOT. So I don't think I introduced myself previously, except for just when I came on camera. But there is no, no inkling of using tolls for improving 16 or anything like that. We get revenues from many different sources, federal money, state money is, from gas taxes, DMV fees, and tolls that support our overall program. But one of the things we're just looking at now is, because it does take a while to fund projects in our budget, is, we look and work several years out, well ahead of projects. Before they go to construction, they do take a long time to deliver larger projects. We always look for short-term fixes too, but this is, we're looking at projects that could then be inserted into the capital transportation plan for funding as we prioritize those projects for funding.
And Mark, maybe stay on, and anyone else who wants to chime in, but maybe talk about this study in terms of coastal corridors with some of the other things you've seen over the last 15, 20 years. So how this particular area of the county relates to things you've seen along Route 1 at the beach, or Route 24 in the Millsboro area, when you've gone out to kind of study things early, maybe before there's the actual need, but to try to kind of get ahead of things. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that.
Sure, I can comment on that. So we have a number of areas where we do these comprehensive studies that look out, 10, 20, 25 years into the future. We're looking at land use forecasts, traffic forecasts, development patterns, different things like GPS routing technology, which has changed the game some. So, we have a number of studies that we conduct around the state. Some of them are the comprehensive transportation studies with land use, which are known as the transportation improvement districts that we did in Henlopen. But we also had the north-south study, which looked at alternatives up and down 113, and out of that study came a series of projects which are being delivered as we speak, one of those being the 113 and 16 grade separation of that intersection. And I think there was a comment earlier that it said that it was ranked low for crashes. So out of the 3 that we shown, it was ranked 33rd in the whole state. So it was the lowest of the 3, but that's 33rd in the entire state of Delaware. So that's obviously relatively high.
Jen, did you want to jump in with something?
I just wanted to say that this is such a great opportunity, and I hope everybody can view it that way. I know Kim's on the town manager for Ellendale, and her and I work closely together to try and plan things out so that towns are ready for the traffic to come, and that they're not feeling pinched or inundated by it. You know, we really are here to kind of get this feedback so that we can have everybody at the table preparing for the future versus trying to respond to what's already come in. And that's really the goal here.
Yeah, and I'll just add, and I see a few more hands raised, that, it's public outreach, the way states do public outreach now, they get out very early. I think there used to be a time years and years ago where it would almost be too late when they would come out. They've already made decisions and people would be frustrated by, why didn't you let me know this sooner, kind of. Well, now in this case, DelDOT is trying to get out early and get feedback. And what that does is, it can raise concerns like, oh no, what are you coming out to tell me? It must be bad news. When in this case, we're really just coming out to initiate a conversation and to get information. And we'll come back with that information and we'll share it with you. And we'll kind of collectively and at the same time kind of move this process along so that we can hear from you and figure out if there are needs that the community feels should move forward. And at that point, we and you will move forward. But again, we're still far away from that. So I'm going to go to back to Annette Giberson to ask another question. Annette, I just I'm clicking on it and it's not doing it.
There.
Oh, you are there. Okay, good.
I think I worked. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Now that I hear that there is a representative of one of the towns on this conference, I thought it might be a good time to ask. It doesn't apply to Ellendale, but I don't see any foresight going into the planning along Route 9 in Georgetown. I know that was one of the highly congested areas on your study, and it also had a big time delay on your study. I don't understand why so much development is allowed along Route 9 when it's a 2-lane road, one in each direction. And it's just common sense that there's going to be traffic delays. And there seems to be no end to the development along Route 9. Can anyone in DelDOT give me an explanation for that?
Anyone want to jump on? Obviously, DelDOT can speak to the transportation issues along Route 9. Mark, did you want to respond?
Sure. So we have our own series of improvements along 9 that were illustrated in the slide. We have our gateway project at Route 9 in Sandhill, which will improve safety and capacity at that intersection. We have a major project with the relocation of Park Avenue to create a bypass for trucks around Route 9. And we did a project out at 9 and 5 in Harbison to improve safety. And we have developers who are also making improvements to some of the intersections along 9. So we do our best to require the developers to maintain or improve the existing level of service that's out there.
Basically, you're talking about intersections. So there's no plan for Route 9 to be made wider.
Not at this time, but that's one of those things that could be looked at, and we're looking for feedback as part of this study.
It just seems a little silly to have people building right up to Route 9 and go back 10 years from now and say, well, we have to take your property.
We work with the county to make sure that there's appropriate right of way, either reserved or dedicated, and set to allow that to happen.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay, I'm going to go to another question.
Actually, Andrew, if I could add to that, that's one of the most valuable purposes for a study like this, is to understand if any roads should need to be widened in the future, which ones those are, to be able to plan accordingly. We have no idea yet whether that's going to be needed. But this study will tell us whether that type of project would be needed at some point in the future, which allows the county and DelDOT to work together to reserve right-of-way wherever possible for those types of projects.
Well, that's great. I mean, if you are thinking down the road and are reserving right-of-ways, then that would solve the issue. But right now, we go by there and we laugh. When I drive down that road, there's thousands of houses going up on this 2-lane road that can't handle the traffic it has now. But, you know, that's above my pay grade, so you folks need to deal with it.
Well, we appreciate you participating tonight and sharing that. And I'm going to go to our next question from Aaron Moore. Aaron, I just unmuted you. You just have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Aaron.
All right. So the first comment that I had, or question really, is about the website on the Coastal Corridor study. If you go on there, it, I guess, needs to be updated a little bit. Like, for example, if you click on next meeting, it says there's no workshop scheduled, but if you scroll down, there's 5 workshops listed. So I guess it's not really adding up on the same page, for example. But the reason I was on there is I was trying to find, is there some sort of a map that delineates what is the quote unquote Ellendale area, the Milton area? The reason I ask is, so you said there were no fatal accidents in the Ellendale area, but 2 of the 3 that you showed for Redden Road, we as the primary provider at the Ellendale Fire Company, we were the emergency services provider for that accident. So my concern is decisions being made for, say, you know, that section of Redden Road has a Georgetown zip code, and then so all the information gets given to Georgetown, but really it's Ellendale that's providing the service to the area. So just making sure that we stay informed on areas that, while it may not be the quote unquote Ellendale area, we're the primary responsibility for it.
No, and Aaron, thank you for pointing that out. I caught the next meeting thing on the website earlier today, and I sent it to our technology group. Hopefully they will get that remedied. I do apologize. But yes, we do view, you know, the study area map is actually all encompassing, right? Like, the only reason we broke this out by town was just to try and keep the meeting small so that we could get input from people who live in this specific area. So I obviously do consider Redden Road part of Ellendale. In my mind, that's, you know, where it belongs. But, you know, thank you for what you all do. I know it is challenging to navigate our roads at times. So that was one of the things we did. I think Andrew mentioned we did here during our listening sessions with some of the emergency responders. So, but thank you again.
Okay, we're going to take, thanks, Aaron. We're going to take 2 more questions. I'm going to first go to Crystal Beach, and then we'll go to Virginia Short. So Crystal, I think you've been unmuted. You just have to unmute yourself.
Yes. So as we talk about the out years in your planning, I'm just curious, mass transit, how far out is that in DelDOT's planning stages?
And I assume you mean for this particular area?
That is correct. For these corridors, these main corridors that are feeding to the beaches, because that's, you know, what it's all about, along with obviously the huge population growth that we've had in this state. So where is mass transit along any of these corridors? Has it been talked about by DelDOT?
Yeah, thank you for that question. One of the things that I'm really excited about, it's not to the beaches, but they are doing a micro transit kind of trial. I'm trying to think of the word for it, and I apologize.
Pilot?
Between Georgetown, pilot, thank you. Started with a P. Between Georgetown and Millsboro. And this is new and great and coming out. So email me and I will get you that information. We are also, I know DTC, they are on the call. I didn't want to put them on the spot, but they are looking for more connections along these routes. As developments come in, they do ask if it's a good spot for transit to have kind of a bus stop or something like that. They do ask for the developments to put those in for us. So believe me, we are focusing on Sussex County as a whole, and that's definitely part of the study as well.
Great. Thanks, Jen. And then back to Virginia Short. I just unmuted you. You need to unmute yourself.
So first of all, I want to comment, follow up to Annette Jimmer's question that she asked. Knowing that there are so many developments that are coming up and knowing that they would bring in additional traffic, not only from outside of Delaware, but within Delaware, why are so many developments being permitted to be constructed? That is one of my questions. If you know that this is going to cause traffic problems, knowing that these people come from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, DC, and the Maryland area to retire here, why are you allowing so many developments to be constructed, especially in Sussex County?
Okay, we appreciate that question. Jen, I don't know, or Mark, if you want to talk about anything from the DelDOT side of things. We do have Jamie Whitehouse on from the county. He might be able to share some insights from the county's perspective.
Before Jamie starts, I just want to kind of make sure everybody's aware. So in Delaware, we are kind of unique in that the Department of Transportation does not control land use. Land use lies with each county individually. So Jamie Whitehouse from Sussex County is on, and hopefully he'll be able to come on and kind of speak to that and some of the improvements that have been made in recent years.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Whitehouse of Sussex County Planning and Zoning. It is a very broad and very good question, and I'm certainly happy to speak to it. The answer to the question is that each application comes forward on its own individual merits, whether it's a change of zone application or a subdivision application. But the impact in terms of traffic generation is one of the first things that is looked at before any public hearing. The county has a memorandum of understanding with Delaware Department of Transportation that allows for the exchange of information. The new MOU that came forward has significantly increased our ability to exchange information and make for a better public hearing process. In terms of concerns in particular areas where development has come forward, I'm certainly happy to give the time needed to go through any concerns away from this meeting. Because it is a transportation meeting talking about land use, I didn't want to take up too much of this meeting's time. But if I place my contact information in the comments section, I'm certainly happy to discuss that in much more detail. It's a very good question.
Great, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
And thank you for that question, and thank you for all the questions. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the comments that we've received in the Q&A section. And Jeff, I guess I'll turn it back over to you to close us out. I can't remember if there's one final slide. Oh, there we go. There's a contact slide.
That's right. So I'll just add my thanks to Andrew's and to Jen's and everyone else's for your participation. The discussions that we had about how development and transportation are linked explain exactly why we're having this process. We need to look far into the future to be able to best understand what conditions are going to be like then, so that we can make smart transportation decisions now. And all the information that you give us about what you face every day is very useful to be able to do that. So again, thank you very much. I just wanted to leave this slide up as I finish my remarks so that you can visit the project website, coastalcorridors.deldot.gov, or reach out to Jen at the email address at the bottom, coastalcorridors@delaware.gov. And we look forward to you continuing to be engaged, being engaged in this process. And thank you again for your participation. We hope you all have a great night.